That was a gigantic pain in the ass. Let's discuss. Making a film for virtually no money does actually come with some advantages. For example, on a real film, you've got thousands and thousands of people to wrangle. On this film, you're not going to have all those people because they're going to expect to be paid, and since you're not going to be doing that, they're not going to be there.
I want my check! You're a writer, all right.
So you really only have to manage a couple of people. However, this does come with a slight disadvantage in that, being that it's a film, you're going to have some people in it. And sometimes this can pose its own challenge. For example, you may have noticed that as you get older, your peer group ages with you. You don't tend to know people that are significantly older or younger than you on a first name basis. So if you write a character that's significantly younger than you, you're going to have to get creative about how you get them into it. What did I do? I just kind of asked somebody at work. I had no knowledge of any previous work she had ever done in films. In fact, I'm not sure that she had ever been in one. But I threw the idea out at her after a very long time of stalling because I figured, one, it's hard to ask something like that without it sounding like some stupid come-on or pickup.
What type of person are you?
I'm someone you can trust, Anne. I'm a movie producer.
So in the beginning, it seemed important to have something to show that we were actually serious about doing this. Now, one might assume that the first question out of anyone's mouth would be,
Is there a script?
Fuck no. But there's a poster.
and that's pretty much where we stood. I had this somewhat incomplete poster with no names and not all the textures done, and kind of a rough story outline, and that was it. So I didn't ask for a very long time. It took me about a year or so to write this script, not because it was terribly complicated, but just because I kept running into problems. For example, there's a scene where a character is supposed to tell another character how to take care of the baby she's going to be sitting. Yeah, I don't have kids. I don't even know what to put in this person's mouth. So I had to actually consult somebody that had a kid and knew what the fuck they were talking about. Gradually, I managed to grind this thing out to a point where I felt comfortable actually pointing out that, no, really, we have a script. I proposed the idea to her. I still to this day do not know why she said yes, as she didn't even ask to see the script initially. By the way, if somebody you don't know approaches you asking you to be in their film, you should ask about the script. You never know what you're agreeing to. I mean, who knows what they're going to be expecting you to do in this film.
I need transvestites. All right, what?
Eddie, what kind of a movie is this?
Who knows if maybe you're going to be playing the girlfriend of some guy who conveniently turns out to be played by the director, and they have a big makeout scene.
I remember thinking, how sick is this? Writing that into it so I could kiss credit.
But still, the pen kept.
Yeah.
Really, you want to ask more follow-up questions. Fortunately, you know, we weren't asking her to do anything like that. Heck, the most provocative thing in the entire film was a dance scene, which she had absolutely no problem with. So we were cool with that. So after that was agreed to, we invited her over, we did some script reads, we got a general sense of how she was, and we were delighted to see that she actually seemed to get on well with our cat, because she and the cat would actually have to perform some scenes together. I suggested she try picking up the cat, which she did.
It's okay, Stitch.
Yeah,
He's done.
Not quite so much.
And after that, the cat wouldn't come anywhere near her. Oh well, fortunately there were numerous stand-ins hanging around waiting to take over those parts. The cat she ended up picking up isn't even a black cat, it's a tortoiseshell cat, but fortunately it's in the dark, so you can't really tell. This was the only cat that would let her pick it up, and in fact, when it's supposed to jump down in fear, she kind of had to shove it off her shoulder because the kitty was enjoying the attention. Now, as far as actually shooting this thing goes, there is a certain school of thought which suggests that if you have no money to make a film, you should lean into that, you know, play up the low-tech aesthetic. My personal feelings about that are bullshit. I mean, yes, it's probably easier, but the simple fact is, I don't like films that look like that. My mantra from the very start was, we are going to fincher the hell out of this fucking thing. That turned out to be more true than I actually intended at the time, and I'll get to that later. We started shooting her parts at the beginning of 2020, and then there was a bit of a hang-up.
Here comes sickness! Here comes sickness! Here comes sickness! Running down my street!
So, we kind of had to put things on hold for a bit. We figured we'll wait it out. I mean, this thing certainly will be gone by the end of the summer. And then the end of the summer rolled around, and with no end in sight, we kind of had to start shooting anyway. The bulk of the filming took place at a friend's house, always, without exception, when he and his family were still there, which did tend to pose a couple of problems.
I bet he thinks he's made his point pretty clear. Oh, fuck you.
The house was due to be renovated in some areas that would actually have screwed up the story. There's a whole lot of the plot of this thing that actually revolves around the geography of the house, so it was vitally important we get some of these scenes done before any of that happened. We managed to do that in one really long day, and then about a week later I found out the second hiccup. She had gotten a lucrative job offer in another state and would be moving in about a month and a half, which meant we then had to get the entire rest of the film done in that time.
I have 25 scenes to shoot tonight.
Yeah. And another problem caused by this little son of a bitch is that when we started this, all of us had the same off days, but in order to keep people from having to be too bunched up in certain departments and things like that, schedules got shuffled around. So while I and the homeowner still had weekends off, she was now off on Monday through Wednesday. And this became a bit of an issue because that meant that I had to take vacation time anytime we were going to film with her. The homeowner had actually burned through all of his vacation time because of, you, already earlier in that year. And that presented yet another problem. While we could schedule with her without too much trouble, as long as I took my vacation whenever she was available, we couldn't actually film at his house on those days. So in order to get around that problem, we had to recreate part of his house in our house, in this same room, right over there. The couch was something we fortunately already had. We didn't actually have a couch upholstered in the same color, but the company my wife works for had done the upholstery on his couch, and there was a lot of leftover fabric from that actual exact same job, which we still had, and which we then proceeded to safety pin over our couch to make it look like his, with a little extra crap stuck onto the side that you absolutely could not sit on because it was made of cardboard, but made the couch look larger than it was. We made some pillows that would look sort of like the pillows at his house, and then eventually took those pillows to his house for the scenes that were filmed there to maintain continuity. Continuity, yes. The filmmaker's friend? The problem with shooting in a functioning household is that, unlike a set, things don't sit still. But this house tended to be a little more rearrangey of itself than you would normally expect of a house. When we started, there was a door here. That door's not there anymore. It's over on the other side. And this wall used to be, well, a wall. Now there's a closet in it. There was a shelf added to this wall. I could go on and on. It almost would have been easier, I felt at times, if we had been shooting an adaptation of House of Leaves.
I live at the end of a 5.5-minute hallway.
Jesus Christ, Johnny, are you okay? What happened?
I'm not what I used to be.
But that's not what we're doing at present. Now, in at least one of these cases, it turned out that the changed layout of the house matched the script a bit better, something I was originally going to have to fudge, i.e. pretending that this closet opened into this basement area, which it didn't, became unnecessary because suddenly there was an opening into that area where we needed it to be. The problem was, it also required a door for her to open, and there was no door there. We brought over a door from our own bathroom, which we were going to screw into a support column, just temporarily, to do those scenes, until we noticed that the support column was an iron girder and there would be no screwing into anything, so ultimately the hinges were just taped to the support column. Hopefully nobody notices that. The other problem is that our door was just a tiny bit too tall for the space, so we had to saw off the bottom of our door, and now there's enough room underneath it for a reasonably burly rat to just stroll under without bumping his head. Whatever. What we do for art. And aside from the set, we also decided that anything that didn't take place in one of the more recognizable open areas of the house could always be shot in a different house. Scenes in the bathroom, the master bedroom, even the basement were shot in different locations, so we didn't have to schedule as much with the homeowner. Another problem with working in an actual home and not a set is that we couldn't just decorate it the way we wanted. For one thing, this house was decorated in early geek. There were toys and posters and artwork all over the place, all of which basically boiled down to registered trademarks that we did not have permission to use. So we had to get around that in a couple of different ways. This cabinet is full of toy robots and model ships and stuff like that. We couldn't just empty it out every time we had to film there because, one, that's a giant pain in the ass, not just for us, but for the homeowner. But two, having an empty cabinet like that just looks kind of weird. So we ended up coming up with this sort of workaround solution. We got this fake stained glass that's just a roll of plastic with a pattern on it that we cut into the right shapes and stuck over the cabinets. We left the lights on and suddenly, instead of a problem, we've got kind of this neat bit of set decor. We had to do that over in this area where the DVDs are, which also got digitally retouched to change all of the names to things that we made or things that we made up. And we also had to do it on these two cabinets flanking the television. Other areas required a bit more technological solution, like all of the posters and paintings. Look at all these Spider-Man shots. We couldn't get the rights to use Spider-Man in this, but we couldn't also just take down all the pictures because, again, a bare wall just looks weird and makes the place unlived in looking. So, as I mentioned in the last video, that trick about using After Effects to change things in post ended up getting used a lot more than we originally intended. Every single picture and poster had to be covered over with something we made. And then there was the walls. Those walls. Oh, I love those walls so much. We're making a scary movie, but the area we spend the most time in is painted the most friendly, happy, sunshiny, painted on the walls of a kindergarten class to calm them down, friendly goddamn yellow. And this is where the David Fincher thing comes back in. He actually likes lighting things with natural light and ending up getting this sort of green gold look to a lot of his scenes. So, with no other way to make yellow look even remotely menacing, we sort of leaned into that, making it a slightly sickly color, just to put you on edge. And as the film went on, we messed with the lighting more and more, put more colored lights on. It's not motivated by anything, but hell.
And when you look at the movie, you do have to ask, well, what's all that about? Is that something coming in the window from some atmospheric thing going on outside? You don't need to explain it.
The audience isn't sitting there analyzing where the light's coming from, and if they are, it means you've already lost their attention anyway. So frankly, who gives a shit if it makes any sense? Just do something that looks cool. Now, trying to make a film look cool on no money is a bit of a challenge, but there is a workaround. Christmas and birthdays. None of the equipment that I used, including lenses and filters and stand-up lights like the one I'm using over here, were actually paid for by me. I put all these things on birthday and Christmas wish lists, kind of like the camera I'm using right now. And for more advanced things, well, I recommend watching David Sandberg's video called How to Build a Shitty Dolly. As it turns out, it's not even that shitty. We use this thing quite a bit, and while it might not be as good as a real dolly, it's a hell of a lot better than no dolly. It only costs maybe $5 to $10 to make. It wasn't even noisy. I was worried we were going to have to redub all the sound filmed with it, but as it turns out, not so much. Now, I don't know about you, but I tend to watch all of the behind-the-scenes making of and commentary tracks on movies I like. And one of the things you often hear is the actors gushing on about how amazingly detailed the sets were. I mean, look, you could open up the drawers and find love letters and things written by the characters inside the drawer, and isn't that amazing? It is, if you're taking a tour of the set. But unless that drawer contains a copy of When Muggles Attack or something that you're going to see, that is a waste of time. You don't have time for that kind of crap. The only thing that matters is what shows up on screen. Something I learned when I was only 12 years old and making a stop-motion Star Wars movie out of my action figures and some junk I had to throw together. At the time, there was not actually a model of Leia's blockade runner ship that appears at the beginning of the movie, so I kind of had to make one out of cardboard and rolls from used toilet paper and shit like that. However, I very quickly realized that you only had to build the part of the mock-up that you were ever going to see. This was the angle you were going to see, so the other side, the top, the front, and the entirety of the back were irrelevant. I only needed as many toilet paper rolled tubes as was necessary to fill out the bottom and the side of this engine block back here. The rest of it didn't make any difference. Sure, if you're showing the model off to your friends, it looks really boring, but for what you're putting on camera, it's good enough.
What's to protect? It was perfect.
Ultimately, we managed to complete the thing by a hair.
I have 5 days to complete this picture. Don't get goofy on me.
With basically just 5 days remaining, we had to shoot this entire scene and this entire scene in the space of about 3 hours one Sunday morning, whilst waiting for a neighbor to stop using his leaf blower. That left everything else to be crammed into a Thursday night before she had to leave. 2 days after we wrapped shooting, she was leaving for Chicago. So fortunately, there were no return trips necessary, and we had everything we needed, or at least close, in order to start getting this thing put together. That takes us into the wonderful world of post-production, and I'll cover that in our next video, whenever the hell that comes out. See you then.
We're going nowhere.
What did they do to her?
It's just like it was the last time. There's nowhere to go. She's coming.
That's him.
Have you babysat before?
I've got this.
It's just a house. Why is it always a house?
What do you think is in there?
I don't know.
You come rolling in here like a thundercloud.
The scariest thing in the world to me is feeling trapped.
Don't tell me you're not afraid of ghosts. I think maybe what you might be trying to say is you don't believe in ghosts. That's not the same thing.
It always comes due.
That's a fact.
There's a storm coming.
Who is this?
I work in the lighthouse. You should evacuate. It's not safe.
There's something in here that shouldn't be.
Maybe death's knocking on your door.
Life is for the living. You're just a shadow.
Is something wrong?
Just rethinking every decision I've ever made.